Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're looking at my selection of my top 3 Omega watches. I'm going to do slightly more than 3, but I'm going to split them up into 3 main categories. So we're going to start with our dress watch. Dress watches from Omega is kind of an area of their collection that's really overlooked. Most people think of Omega really as a sports watch brand, and technically they are. They're very much like Rolex in the fact that most of their models are more sports oriented, but actually some of their dress watches are really nice. So we're going to start with the Globemaster 39mm, and the specific one we're going to look at is the steel with the silver dial and also the steel with the blue dial. This watch is just an absolutely beautiful watch, so classic looking, just a fantastic piece. We've got our fluted bezel made from tungsten. It's a much finer fluting pattern compared to Rolex day dates and Rolex date justs. It's a really nice delicate fluting pattern. In fact, it creates a little bit more of a sparkle rather than the real glint and shimmer that you get from Rolex ones. Yeah, it does, even though they look at first glance like quite similar watches, this and a date just, they do create a different look. The actual bezel itself is made from tungsten as well, and we have an amazing high mirror polish around the edge of this bezel, and the rest of the case is pretty much all brushed finish, which is really unique for a dress watch. It actually looks really nice. I really like the fact that they finished most of this watch in brushed finish, because most dress watches are almost all polished finish. And this kind of creates a bit more of a sporty feel about this dress watch. Even though it is a dressy style with that leather strap and that case size and the dial configuration, it kind of makes it a little bit more versatile in the fact that you've got those brush finish, which makes it a little bit more acceptable for casual occasions. The other variation of this watch is the blue dial variation. For those of you that really like the current trends of blue dials, blue straps, that's a really cool looking watch. But personally, I prefer the silver dial or the white dial, and the reason being really is just it's so legible. You could have this watch from age 20 or even in your teens, and it would be appropriate all the way up to in your 90s or 100s, you know. And even when you're in your 90s and 100s, when your eyesight isn't as good as it was when you're younger, this watch is so legible due to the fact it's got such amazing contrast between the hands, those black hands, and the white dial, and also those indexes as well. So really cool, versatile watch, incredibly classic, will stay in fashion for an indefinite amount of time. A beautiful dial, incredibly legible, amazing case size at 39mm. Next, we're looking at the Globemaster 41mm annual calendar. Another really underrated piece from Omega, something that doesn't really get that much attention. The Globemaster 41mm annual calendar is such a cool piece because you're able to get a complication like an annual calendar, which usually would command so much money from another brand like Patek or Audemars Piguet, and to be able to get that in a £6,000 watch is just incredible. Really cool piece. I love the blue combination with the blue strap and then all the hands and the little accents on the dial. And of course that silver dial is just amazing looking. It's kind of got a real contemporary modern look about it, but of course it's still quite a classic piece in terms of case dimensions, case size, etc, etc. So yeah, really cool piece. Another really underrated watch from Omega. Next in our classic watch category, we're going to look at the 39mm Railmaster. If you like retro watches, retro style from Omega, kind of that patina look no further. This is just such a cool watch. Of course, the Railmaster is part of their original professional line of watches, and this watch just looks so cool. The way they've kept it kind of real retro look. It almost looks like a vintage Explorer 1 from Rolex as well, with those numbers, the 12, 9 and 3 and 6. I love the patina that they've done on the dial with those index markers being kind of that yellow. Also the hands as well look really nice and aged. And the nylon strap that they paired with this watch features like a little stitch in the same color as the patina on the dial. So really cool accents on this piece. Nice small size at 39mm, very classic. A really cool everyday piece that's great for exploring and kind of anything you want to wear this watch. Again, a brush finish, so it doesn't seem too dressy. It's definitely a sporty side of a dress watch. Yeah, really cool piece. One of my favorites from Omega. Again, another really underrated watch from Omega. And now moving on to number 2, our next category, which actually only has one watch in it, but that category is dive watches. Omega is possibly one of the most famous watches from Omega is their Seamaster collection. And there's so many options within that collection of their Seamaster watches. But for me, the best one, in my opinion, is the Diver 300 meter. Just a real cool classic watch. The 41mm variation of this watch is probably the one I'd go for. There are other sizes as well, and there's so many other variants of this piece. But for me, the black dial 41mm is just such a classic. It's kind of James Bond inspired as well. In my opinion, this is one of the best everyday watches that you can buy. It's an incredible price. They're incredibly reliable watches, Omegas. I also love the fact that this is slightly more elegant looking than the Submariner from Rolex. I find the case just much more of a flowing, artistic, elegant style versus the more boxy style of the Rolex Submariner. A very, very legible dial. Again, that deep black dial contrasting with those hands and our white indexes. Incredibly legible, something you could have for many, many years. Yes, it is much more on the sporty side, and for me this bracelet is not my favorite. I would definitely take that off and put it on a NATO strap or one of our Perlon straps. But it's totally up to you what you'd like to do with this. In my opinion, I just think this watch really comes to life when it's on a NATO strap. And now moving on to number one. Number one, we have, without surprise, the Speedmaster from Omega. This is possibly the watch that really put them on the map the most of all their watches in their collection, and really because this watch was certified by NASA to go on the moon. There are tons and tons of variation of the Speedmaster as with the Seamaster, but I've selected a couple that I think really are, in my opinion, the best of the range. But everyone will have their own taste and own choice of what they think is the best of the selection. At number one in my selection, or the first one we're looking at in the Speedmaster selection, is the Speedmaster CK2998. The CK2998 is a new limited edition watch, but the original CK2998 was released back in 1959, and in fact was actually the first Omega to go to space in 1962. So a really cool special watch in Omega's history. It's not technically the moon watch, but it's the first watch Omega made that actually went to space. I absolutely love the dial on this watch. This dial is such a cool dial. Yes, it is very Paul Newman looking with the panda style subdials, the white and then the kind of outer area, the black outer area of the dial, and then of course all tying in with our black bezel. Just a really, really cool looking piece. And the fact it's slightly smaller as well just makes it possibly one of my favorite Omegas they've ever made. Really cool sporting kind of racing style. It's kind of, yeah, definitely has a real Paul Newman Daytona style about it, or feel about it. And now next we've got the Speedmaster Dark Side of the Moon Apollo 8 edition. This is a very, very unique watch, not something you'll see very often. It's quite large as well, at over 44mm. So personally, I wouldn't wear it because it's a little bit too big for me, but it's just such a cool looking watch, and Omega's really been so creative with the design of this piece. I absolutely love the dial of this watch. It's got so much depth and character. We've kind of got these different sections of the dial that represent the texture of the moon. They're just so creative at all areas of this watch. I love the way that it's kind of Richard Mille-esque, where we've got the see-through to the movement underneath, that skeleton style, but it's not in an obvious skeleton style. You've kind of got chunks of the moon hiding some of the movement. It's just really cleverly done. I would personally put this watch on one of their NATO straps because I think this watch just looks much better on something slightly more casual. And now finally, at number one spot for the whole video, the best watch in my opinion from Omega, which is kind of without surprise, the Speedmaster Moonwatch Professional. This is just such a classic design watch, an incredibly beautiful watch, so retro, reminds me so much of space travel, the kind of 60s. It's just got such an amazing retro look. I always say this dial just totally reminds me of space travel immediately when I look at it. That kind of textured black satin, almost grey dial reminds me of space, looking out to space, and then those textured white hands and all the markers just reminds me of like dials within the spacecraft, and also stars and the moon as well. It just really is a beautiful watch, and they've really captured space travel within this piece. It's just an amazing watch. The watch is an icon, of course, for going to the moon and for being the certified watch by NASA for going to the moon. I would choose this watch without doubt with the Hesalite crystal and the bracelet. And the reason why I chose the Hesalite crystal is because that is what they designed it with when they originally designed it in the 60s to go to space, because the Hesalite breaks up into larger chunks, which means that it's much safer if it was to break in the cockpit of the spacecraft. Then there wouldn't be loads of little small shards of glass flying around. because it's a zero gravity environment, whereas sapphire crystal would do that. Hesalite breaks into much larger chunks, so it's easier to fish it out of the air. So in my opinion, you should really have the ultimate space variation of this watch, which is the Hesalite. Another reason why I love the Hesalite is because over the years, as you wear it, the Hesalite will scratch because it's made from almost like a plastic, so it's much softer than sapphire crystal. So it scratches and gives the watch real character and retro feel. You can really age this watch quite quickly, and it just looks incredible. And the reason why I choose the bracelet is because even though I would personally wear this watch all the time on a NATO strap or a Perlon strap from ourselves, I would definitely buy it on the bracelet in the first place, because the price difference between the bracelet and the strap is literally nothing. And the audience for when you want to sell it, if you ever did want to sell it, for the bracelet is much larger than that of the leather strap. And it's also nice just to have the bracelet there if you ever did want to wear it on the bracelet. Something you probably have heard me say 1,000 times about this watch, and that is that this watch is without question the best valued watch in the whole of the Swiss watch industry. It's an incredible piece, fantastic for everyday wear, and for almost every single occasion. I can't really think of an occasion when this wouldn't be appropriate. When you put it on the bracelet, yes, it is a sporty-ish looking watch, but when you've got it on the bracelet, it definitely does look more dressy, and much more of a smarter watch. And then you can put it on the Perlon straps or the NATO straps, and it looks much more of a casual piece, brilliant for everyday use. Yes, the only irritation that we find from clients that are considering this watch is the fact that it's manually wound, but kind of the people who get over that first and go and take the plunge for this watch fall in love with that process in the morning or whenever you do it of winding the watch. It's just a really nice little moment between you and your watch. So that concludes my video on the top 3 categories of watches and kind of top 3 watches from Omega. I absolutely love Omega watches. They're brilliant pieces, fantastic watches for everyday use. They're brilliantly priced and they're incredibly reliable. If you think I missed out on any watches, then please do comment down below which you think should have been in the top 3 lineup, and let me know what other brands you'd like me to do. Stay tuned for more videos, and as always, if you're interested in any of the watches mentioned during this video, then please don't hesitate to contact us. It would be a pleasure to call these watches into stock for you.